Good evening and welcome to the Utopian Baseball Universe Los Angeles Dodgers team preview show. I'm Joey Buchholz. A little bit later start tonight to accommodate our West Coast viewers as we talk a little Dodger baseball tonight. I'm really excited about the show because my guest tonight is going to be the first person I ever interviewed in this format when we did our West Division new roster reveal about a month ago or so. We had this gentleman on, Rick Lenaburg, and we're going to bring him on right now. Welcome back.
Thank you, Joey. Good to see you.
The first member of the Two Timers Club on the Utopian Baseball Universe.
Well, I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
So we'll have to get you fitted for that jacket soon. But
yes,
Rick is here tonight. We're gonna share some of our Dodger memories. He's gonna talk about his baseball life, if you will, and then we'll get to the Dodgers roster reveal tonight. As always, folks, if you're watching tonight and have any questions or comments, feel free to share those. We're gonna get to those at the end of the show. But for now, we're gonna talk to Rick Lenaburg, who I just told prior to us going live that he has officially brought in 88 people since February 1st. We're up to 425 members. And Rick, you are responsible for about 20% of the membership here. So as I tell you almost every day, thank you so much for joining yourself and for all the great people that you've been bringing in the last month or so.
Well, you're very welcome. But, you know, all those people, most of the people that are in my group or our friends on Facebook are baseball fans or work in the game one way or another. They're connected. So it's pretty easy to get them in. Yeah,
and they've pretty much everyone that comes in has been contributing in some way, shape, or form. And I just appreciate it. We're having a lot of really good conversations daily. But Rick, tell me, you know, I think the last time we had you on, we talked about your podcasts, which obviously mean that you're a huge baseball fan. If you're doing two shows, tell me about some of your earlier memories in baseball and if it relates to the Dodgers team we're talking about tonight.
Well, it most certainly would. My earliest memories go back to being a child, actually. I'm from Phoenix, of course, as you know. And I live in Arizona, in the Phoenix area right now. But we used to spend the summers in Southern California with family over there. And I went to so many games at Dodger Stadium, and I got to see Sandy Koufax and Don Drysdale, Maury Wills, Steve Garvey, Ron Say, Don Sutton, all those guys. So, but I can remember one of the first games I went to, Koufax pitched. And I remember whoever took me, my dad or my brother or one of my uncles, somebody said, watch this game closely because someday you're going to be telling people you saw Koufax live. I had no idea what that meant at the time, but sure enough, they were right. You know, it's something I talk about with friends, seeing Koufax pitch and how dominant he was. And there's a lot of comparisons today between him and Clayton Kershaw. And I love Kershaw. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. But he doesn't, I don't know how to put this, doesn't stack up to Koufax, in my view, as great as Kershaw is. Koufax pitched complete games all the time. He had 27 in 1966 when he won 27 games also. He dominated the sport for like a 5.5-year period from 61 to 66, like no other pitcher ever has. And again, as great as Kershaw is, he hasn't been that kind of dominating pitcher. He had a period of about 3 years where he was very untouchable. But I think comparing the two, they're from two different eras, and you have to take that in context also. No pitchers today throw complete games. The Dodgers are happy if Kershaw and Walker Buehler and Trevor Bauer will get them to the 7th inning. You know, that's a total change from how it was back then.
Now, for some of our younger viewers that might not be aware, can you share the circumstances as to why Sandy Koufax's career was cut short like it was?
Absolutely. And actually, if people go on YouTube, there's a video clip of the press conference where he announces retirement. He had serious arm problems because they didn't have radar guns back then. But everyone who's watched and who had stopwatches and things tells me he hit over 100 miles an hour consistently. He threw a curveball that with his left arm that caused him to snap every time he threw it. And that really built up tissue problems around his elbow, and he developed arthritis there. So he was in a position of thinking, I may not have use of this arm by the time I'm 35. So he retired after the 66 season at age 30. Imagine if he had pitched 5 more years and been as dominant, what kind of numbers he would have put up.
And if memory serves me correctly, and when I say memory, I mean, this happened before I was alive, his last year was 65, the year they
60.
beat Twins in the World Series?
66, actually.
66. And
yeah.
They beat
they lost to the Orioles. They got swept by the Orioles.
Okay, so they beat the Twins in 65.
Right.
And then they lost to the Orioles, and then he was done.
Yeah.
Okay.
At 65, by the way, he pitched and won the 7th game of the World Series on 2 days rest. Another thing you'll never see happen.
Nope.
In this day and age, probably ever again in baseball.
Yeah, I don't think you'll ever see that. Just the way rotations are used now. And, you know, we talked about on an earlier show, Blake Snell. Like, I believe he should have been out there in Game 5 or whatever it was against the Dodgers.
Yes.
You know, he's your best pitcher. He was dominant, and the analytics folks said, well, this is what happens once he starts seeing a lineup for the 3rd time. So the computers say we need to do this. But I guess I just miss the days when you just went out and played ball.
I do too.
You know, you just kind of went with the guys that got you there. One of the issues I have with baseball in general these days is so like in the NFL, your best player is going to be out there at the end of the 4th quarter.
Right.
On an NBA stage, your best player, your best 5 are going to be out there at the end of a game. And now in baseball, your 6th and 7th best pitchers are on the hill usually in the 8th and 9th innings. I would love to see a team pilot where they go opener all year, so that guys like Bumgarner, Kershaw, DeGrom are on the mound in the 9th inning every night. To me, I think that would just make sense. Have your starting pitcher, your starting pitcher start in the 3rd or 4th, take you through the whole game, have your closer pitch the 1st, have your 8th inning guy pitch the 2nd, and have your best pitcher on the mound every night when the game means something. I would love for one team to try that.
That's quite an idea. I'd like to see that too, actually, see how it turns out.
I know that the Astros and the Rays have kind of tinkered with that idea in the minor leagues, where they go with like a 4-man rotation where they're going 5 or 6 innings max, but they're coming in the 3rd or 4th so that you have your most dominant pitcher getting the outs that are most important in a game. I think at some point, have a team like Baltimore or Colorado, a team that's not expected to do much in 2021, just try it and see how it works.
Do you remember the Oakland A's great teams from the 80s, that era when they dominated?
Yeah, I mean, Stewart, Welch, Bash Brothers. Yeah, I love those teams.
Yeah, okay. So you mentioned Welch. He's the last pitcher to win at least 27 games in the major leagues. He did it in 1990. And he didn't get a lot of complete games because Eckersley was saving that year. But Dave Stewart did. I can't remember how many he got, but Dave Stewart had a pile of complete games. He was known for finishing what he started. And that all changed at some point, either in the late 90s or early 2000s, to where you started seeing less and less and less complete games. And now, if someone throws a complete game today, it's a big deal. It's huge.
News.
But I think about someone like Steven Strasburg of the Nationals. He routinely they'll pull him after 7 innings, but his last pitches are harder and faster than his opening pitches in the first inning. Why not leave a guy like that in? You know, if he gets in trouble, that's what the bullpen is for. But
yeah,
my gosh, huge part of the game that I miss.
And Strasburg, I remember, I forget the year, but he was in like his second or third year, and they shut him down in September. And the Nationals, I believe at the time, had the second best record in baseball.
Yep.
And they got swept in the divisional series. I think it was the Cubs that swept them. And they were saying, well, you know, we want to preserve him for his career. And, you know, sure enough, 5 years later, he wins a World Series. He's the MVP of the World Series. But I don't know. It just – you go from guys like you mentioned in the 80s who were pitching 8 and 9 pretty much every night, never really had the arm issues. And now people panic once they get to 90 pitches. I don't know. I mean, I guess – there's always going to be examples on both sides of the ledger. Like when Terry Collins kept Johan Santana in for his no-hitter, they say, well, he went downhill from there, but he was at 135 pitches. Now, I'm not saying everyone needs to go 135 pitches, but Blake Snell was I think, 79 pitches in Game 5 of the World Series.
Right around 80, yeah.
Where he's not going to be asked to pitch again for another 6 months. So you're telling me that your 6th and 7th best pitchers, the guys that, you know, are coming out of your bullpen first, are better options than a guy who's won a Cy Young, a guy who pitched well that night. I don't know. I'm more of a fan of let's play ball, you know?
Yeah.
So now you had mentioned to me before the show that you'd done some work in your career as a public address announcer.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about, do you have any stories to share about some of the things that you maybe have seen in that light?
Yeah. A lot of things go on upstairs in the booth that the fans never know about that are really hilarious. Gosh, there's a bunch of them. One I remember very well. I announced for the Mariners and Padres during spring training at Peoria Stadium, which is only about a mile away from my home now. So one day, the guy who was in charge of the music, you know, was doing his thing, and this older gentleman came up to the booth with a Frank Sinatra CD and asked him to play that. And everybody kind of looked over because you play 80s rock at baseball stadiums. So he kept the CD. And the next day I got there and I was walking through the concourse and I heard a Sinatra song playing over the PA system. And I happened to be walking through with one of the Mariners play-by-play announcers, and we looked at each other and said, oh, he played the music. Well, that song ended and came back to 80s rock. A few minutes later, the door burst open, and the old guy who brought the CD came flying in there, screaming and hollering at everyone. And they had to call security to get him out. But, you know, that's not really baseball related, but it's something I'll always remember. Foul balls coming into the booth. I'm trying to remember who hit it. Somebody on the A's hit a foul ball, and I had an announcer sitting right next to me, and I said, this is coming our way. He said, no, it isn't, and it ended up hitting him right in the nose. Okay, that's funny to me. But those are the kind of things I remember. Not really much of what happened on the field. It's those things that go on upstairs that nobody ever knows about except the people that are in there.
Have you been paying any attention to the I guess, new Twitter feud between Bauer and Syndergaard of the Mets? Have you heard?
No, I haven't. And I follow Trevor Bauer. I just haven't been on there lately.
So, and I don't know who instigated it, but as you probably know, and some people might know that are following this, the day that Bauer announced he was going to the Dodgers, someone from his team accidentally uploaded an announcement that says he was coming to the Mets, because obviously they had some prepackaged things ready to go, and like 10 minutes before he made his announcement that he was going to the Dodgers, something went up on his own website that says he's coming to Citi Field, he's going to be a Met, and so now I guess it started this I'm guessing, friendly Twitter feud between Noah Syndergaard and Trevor Bauer about what the season's going to look like when those teams face each other. I think they have 6 games against each other, 3 in each park. But I think that's going to be appointment Twitter for the next couple years. If you're a Mets fan, you know that Noah Syndergaard has a great feud on Twitter with Mr. Met. It's obviously done in good fun, but so yeah, I just wanted to see if you had heard that, and I'm probably going to throw some of that up on the group later because it's been really entertaining. I think it's going to be. I hope they end up facing each other in at least 1 or 2 games this year.
That would be great. One of the reasons I like Trevor Bauer, and I've liked him most of his career, is that he has a very colorful personality, as you know, and he's not afraid to share his views on analytics and different pitching techniques and anything really. He'll share those things publicly. Baseball needs more personalities like that. Not exactly like him, but colorful people that get the fans engaged and talking about the game. They need more players like that. And I'm glad he's with the Dodgers now. I
saw something interesting. I think you and I may have even talked about this on our last show, but there used to be a game that I used to do with a friend where he would give me a stat line, just blind, and I'd have to say if he was a Hall of Famer or not. Right. And, for years, he's like, your boy David Wright's not a Hall of Famer. He's not a Hall of Famer. And then one day I gave him the stat line, and I said, is this guy a Hall of Famer? And he's like, yeah, that's a Hall of Famer. I'm like, that's David Wright. Another friend did the same thing to me a couple days ago, but we weren't having an argument. He threw a stat line at me and said, is this guy worth $300 million? And it said, 11 games over 500, ERA under 4. And I said, obviously that's Bauer. I see where you're going with this. He goes, no, it's Tanner Roark. And then he showed me their career numbers, and they're almost identical.
Wow.
But because Bauer has been so dominant the last 2 years and kind of had a slow start with Arizona and Cleveland, before he got really good. But he showed me Roark and Bauer side by side, and they're almost identical. So I just think it's interesting what 1 year can do, especially when you have a team that's defending and they've got unlimited money, and I'm sure that the Dodgers were the highest bidder.
Yeah.
But I just think it's interesting to see. And I wonder if he's going to be as good as he was last year with the Reds, or, does he fall back a little? Can you tell me, have they announced who's getting the ball on opening day, or is it too early?
It's too early, but it'll probably be Kershaw. He's healthy, and he's been the man there for so many years that it's kind of an issue of respect. You give it to Kershaw for opening day, and then probably Buehler, and then Bauer. I would think. Sense. Yeah. And then David Price and Julio Urias. Gee, what a starting 5.
I know you got Price as a 4. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to mention something before we go further with the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Because talking about comparisons and numbers, somebody was debating me the other day on a Facebook post about Joe Mauer, because I've said on a couple of podcasts as a guest and as a host that I believe Joe Mauer is a first ballot Hall of Famer, hands down. He should get a unanimous vote. And this person was saying, no, he wasn't that good. I'm telling you, the 15 years he played in the major leagues, if he had played them in New York or Los Angeles, there'd be no question. Everybody would be saying, hey, this year Mauer's going to get in. But he played in Minnesota. This guy won 3 batting titles as a catcher. That's never been done before. He's an incredible player.
Wasn't it true that at the time he won his first American League batting title, nobody had ever won an American League batting title from that position?
That's correct. Only an National League catcher had done it. Yeah.
So Mauer, in a way, kind of reminds me of Robin Yount. Robin Yount was only a 3-time All-Star. He was a first ballot Hall of Famer, but at the time he was voted in, he had the lowest percentage of votes for any first ballot Hall of Famer. He got in with like 77%.
That was a travesty.
It was a travesty, but I like you said, I think it's because the majority of fans were just not as aware of Robin Yount as they were Tony Gwynn, Cal Ripken, bigger names, but also, in slightly bigger markets.
Right.
Mauer and Yount playing in, arguably the two smallest markets in baseball. I agree with that. I mean, 3 batting titles. I don't have his numbers in front of me as far as what he ended up with, but I'm not a big fan of, like when guys are on the ballot and then you vote no for 14 years and then at the end you just say, yeah, he's a Hall of Famer. I say, like, he's either a Hall of Famer or he's not.
Yeah. From the beginning, he's either in or he's not.
Yeah, he's either in or he's not, and Mauer is definitely a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, 3 batting titles alone, I think should be it. And then the fact that he did it at a position where no American League batter had ever won a batting title as a catcher, and he did it 3 times.
Right.
So Rick's going to give me his opinion on the Dodgers Utopian Baseball Universe roster. We're going to unveil. Tommy Lasorda is going to let me know what his opening day starting lineup is going to look like. We were just talking about the Twins. The Dodgers opened their season at the Twins. So let's take a look at some of the highlights here. Dodgers at Twins on March 26th. Memorial Day versus San Diego. Independence Day at the Orioles. On that day, and we just talked about this a couple minutes ago, Dodgers and Orioles are celebrating the 1966 World Series that weekend. So that'll be a fun happening in Baltimore. On Labor Day, the Dodgers are at Colorado. And then the Dodgers are going to finish their season with 3 against the Mariners. The opening day starting lineup at the Twins. Let's put it up on the screen right here. Leading off, second baseman Jackie Robinson. Batting second, left fielder Mookie Betts. Batting third, right fielder Cody Bellinger. Cleanup hitter, center fielder Duke Snider. Batting fifth, first baseman Gil Hodges. Batting sixth, catcher Roy Campanella. Batting seventh, third baseman Ron Say. Batting eighth, shortstop Corey Seager. And then for the second straight year, the opening day starter for the Utopian Dodgers, Sandy Koufax. What are your thoughts on this 1 through 9 for the Bums?
I like it, although there's a couple of them. Cody Bellinger, I would probably not have on there. I'd be more inclined to go with Tommy Davis, who won back-to-back batting titles in 1962 and 3 and put up serious numbers for the Dodgers his whole time there. Corey Seager at shortstop, that's interesting. Now, he hasn't had as many years in the major leagues. I think he's going into his 6th year this coming season. But he's been solid throughout the way and had a great year last year and was the World Series MVP. I go back to Maury Wills and Pee Wee Reese right behind him. But Maury Wills not only was the spark plug of that Dodgers team in the 60s that was so dominant, he got on base and they got him around one way or another. And they won a lot of 1-0 and 2-1 games where Wills scored either one or both runs. He stole 104 bases in 1962. And you hear that and you go, well, Ricky Henderson stole 130. You got to understand the context of that era. The league leader, I think the year before, had something like 22. Maury Wills sold 104 bases, and it was exactly what that Dodger team needed because they didn't have a bunch of sluggers on that team. He had to get on base. They'd bunt him around. He'd steal a base and score on a sac fly. Sandy Koufax's perfect game in 1965, the pitcher for the Cubs, I can't remember his name now. Isn't that a shame? Anyway, he pitched a one-hitter, gave up 1 hit, and that hit didn't contribute to the Dodgers' run. They won 1-0. Wills, I think, got on base. Somebody got on base on an error, stole second, went to third on a ground out, and came in on a sacrifice fly by Lou Johnson. So that perfect game was really the game of Koufax's career, but also the Cubs pitcher. I think his name was Bob Henley. This guy pitches a one-hitter against the Dodgers and loses 1-0 on the day when his opponent throws a perfect game.
That's got to be
tough. Ironic.
That's got to be tough. Now, so to just to react to what you had said about Wills, Maury Wills is one of the players that when I had to build the Durham Bulls and get them some talent, Maury Wills was one of the first guys I put on there. So Wills is a shortstop for the Durham Bulls this year. And as far as Bellinger, I agree with you, Davis. I wanted to have a good mix of greats, favorites, and current players. The greats, obviously, you got to get Robinson in there. You got to get, Duke Snyder. For me to make this interesting, to do this, 3 hours a day, I got to get some of my favorites in there, like John Tudor and Dave Stieb and guys like that.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to give a younger fan base something that they can root for as well. Because if it was just all the great players from the past, I think we might alienate some of that younger viewer. And if we had just current players, then we're kind of missing the boat on what this is supposed to be, which is the greats from every era. And one thing that I want to do every year to keep this fresh is that on every single roster, there's 5 or 10 players that are going to get call-ups, next year, 2 years from now, so that it kind of gives this a free agency feel to it. So next year, you're going to see Cy Young, who's not on a roster in 2021, get a contract from someone to be their Utopian Day ace. The Dodgers are going to bring up a Tommy Davis at some point to be the guy that gets them over the hump. So I've got players like that in every franchise so that this does evolve. Because, if this goes 50, 60, 70, 100 years, we're not going to have the same names every year because I think that would get stale. You gotta evolve it somehow. So to any Dodgers fan watching tonight, if you don't hear your favorites, you'll hear them next year most likely. Let's continue on. Let's look at what the bench is going to look like on opening day. Again, if they're not starting opening day, it doesn't mean that they're not going to get at-bats in 2021. We've got Will Smith, Steve Garvey, Steve Sachs, Justin Turner, Pee Wee Reese, Matt Kemp, Dusty Baker, and Sean Green. Sean Green hit 4 home runs in a game in Milwaukee. I forget the year, 2002, I want to say.
It was 2002. Yeah.
19 total bases that day. He had 4 homers, a double, and a single, which I still think is the record for total bases in a 9-inning game. 19.
19. That was an amazing performance. He had a great season.
Yeah.
For the Dodgers that year. I'd totally forgotten about him. I'm glad you put him on that team.
Definitely, yeah.
I would probably replace Matt Kemp with a guy named Reggie Smith, who played for the Dodgers in the late 70s.
Yep.
Was a great right fielder, powerful hitter, and a great arm out there.
Yep. And again, a lot of this is based on, it's kind of that mix of like greats, favorites, and stuff. If a player does well, like so last year, I'll give you an example. Tom Browning. Tom Browning was the 5th starter for the Reds last year, and he went 15-4. So, wow. So he's not the ace, but he's gonna be like a 2 or a 3 this year. And Matt Kemp last year, again, it's kind of random because of the way we simulate these results. Matt Kemp actually led the Utopian Baseball Universe in pinch hit homers. He had 4 pinch hit homers because he wasn't getting his, he wasn't starting over guys like Betts and Bellinger, but he had 4 pinch hit homers, and that's kind of what earned him a chance to be on the roster again. But again, it's going to be fluid. We're probably going to see, I would say, 15 to 20% turnover every year in rosters because we want to bring up these prospects, and then we want more legends and more players from the past to get a chance to compete. So both names that you've mentioned are going to get a chance at some point for this Dodgers team.
Yeah, and I'm glad you got Gil Hodges on there because we were just talking about the Hall of Fame and Joe Mauer. Gil Hodges, why he is not in the Hall of Fame baffles me to this day. He had 7 straight seasons with over 100 RBIs. He anchored that corner for years, 10 years. one year he hit 304 with 42 homers and 130 RBIs. I think that was 1951. You know, he was just solid and steady there. Great glove too. And yet he's a perfect example of a guy just not acknowledged by the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I definitely think he's a Hall of Famer, and I think he was the manager of the '69 Mets, correct?
He was.
Yeah.
He was. That's
So
right.
I even have friends that are Mets fans that maybe weren't even aware of that. He was the manager in '69, and then he passed right before the '73 season, right?
I think it was 73 or 2. Yeah, he had a heart attack on the golf course.
Yeah, and then so Yogi Berra was the manager of the Mets in '73. But yeah, he's definitely a Hall of Famer.
Well, and when I hear people talking about Hall of Fame discussions, and this previous vote, no one got elected this year, but they were talking about names like Scott Rowland. Now, I have great respect for Scott Rowland and what he did on the field, but to put him in the same category as Gil Hodges is an insult to Hodges. You know, it's people, whoever's debating these things and bringing these names up are crazy. And I don't like the way the system is, the way they vote for the Hall of Fame. I don't think it should be just the Baseball Writers Association. I know that offends a few of my friends that are in that association, but I think former players should have input. You know, the guys who played with those same guys, their peers, some of those players ought to be voting whether they should get in the Hall or not.
I agree with that. I don't think it should be just the baseball writers. I think it should be former players. I mean, it's a fans' game. I think the fans should have some say. I'm not saying like they get the final vote, but I think fans should have a say in it as well.
Yeah, you're right about that. They should have some input at least.
Yeah, I mean, Scott Rowland, when you say the name Scott Rowland, I don't think Hall of Fame. There's Hall of Famers that are in the Hall of Fame that I just don't think Hall of Fame. Harold Baines is a solid player. I don't think Harold Baines is a Hall of Famer. And if you're a friend or family member of Harold Baines, I apologize. But, you know, it just when I think of Hall of Fame, I think of Ted Williams, Willie Mays, Babe Ruth, Hank Aaron, Koufax, Gibson. I think of like the best of the best of the best. And I don't know. I don't get upset when they have years like this when no one gets in because they're sticking to their guns and saying, hey, we just didn't have any Hall of Fame worthy guys this year. And
they actually did. Now, again, I know personally there's some people listening who vehemently disagree with me on this, but I'm going to tell you that in spite of everything, again, we're going to take it in the context of the era. Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion. And how do you take as great a player as he was and the numbers he put up, how do you leave that out of the Hall of Fame? Even without the accusations of human growth hormones and things like that, even without that, he was great already. He might not have hit 72 home runs in one year without those. I don't know. He might have, though. But one thing a lot of people don't understand, taking steroids doesn't make you a better baseball player. It makes you stronger, and, yeah, maybe you can hit the ball farther, but you still have to have the hand-eye coordination to be out there in the first place. So that entire era, and I have friends that played in the majors in that era and played in the minors in that era. They said it was rampant. 80% of players were using. So in that context, from that era, Barry Bonds is the best player, period.
I agree. And, you know, I've never been to the Hall of Fame museum, but when I do, I'd like to take my daughter and I'd like for her to see the hit king, the home run king, and arguably one of the top 10 pitchers ever, because they were all Hall of Famers before they used, or in Rose's case, gambled. But I have no problem just putting on their plaque why they were left out for as long as they were. You know, just say,
that'd be all right.
Pete Rose bet on baseball. I don't think Pete Rose should hold a job in baseball, but he should be in the museum. I don't think Barry Bonds, Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame, but I have no problem with putting on his plaque saying the guy never hit more than 46 homers prior to 72. He never hit more than 46 after. So just say this is why the numbers are the way they are. But Roger Clemens struck out 20 twice before he used.
That's correct.
How many Cy Youngs? 7 Cy Youngs?
7 Cy Youngs.
These are Hall of Famers. These are definitely Hall of Famers.
Easily. And unfortunately for them, those two guys in particular, their personalities did not mesh well with the media during that era, and the fans too. They were kind of abrasive to the fans, and I was working during that era and would see these guys regularly. I interviewed Barry Bonds a couple times. He was more comfortable with me because I wasn't coming from a place of trying to dig something up and find things out. And I had met him previously. He went to Arizona State University, which is my alma mater also. I met him when he was at ASU. Roger Clemens could be very abrasive as well. But you don't hold a guy's personality up as a reason not to put him in the Hall of Fame. If that were the case, Ted Williams wouldn't be in there, maybe.
True.
Ty Cobb, certainly.
Yeah.
But it's what happens on the field is all that counts, really, for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the football, NFL Hall of Fame. You get like 10 guys in every year, convicted felons in some cases, but they only focus on what happened on the field. Now, don't interpret that as to mean I think in baseball, if you're convicted of a felony, you should still get in the Hall. That's a totally different discussion. But Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens belong. There's no question.
Yeah, I mean, it's when I think of baseball, these are the names I think of. And again, like you said, Bonds was great before he used. Clemens was historically great before he used. So, yeah, I hope at some point, just to make the trip to the museum worthwhile, you got to get the best players in there.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Let's look at the starting pitching for the Dodgers. This is a Dodgers team that was the best, had the best record in the Utopian Baseball Universe last year. They got upset in the Final Four against Atlanta, but this is their starting rotation to start the year. Sandy Koufax, Oral Hershiser, and Clayton Kershaw will all be getting starts against the Twins. And then the Dodgers come to Miller Park on April 2nd, and the Brewers are going to face Don Sutton, ironically, who spent a couple years here in Milwaukee, Don Drysdale, and then Koufax again, with Fernando Valenzuela and Don Newcomb waiting in the wings for the Dodgers. Hershiser was brilliant last year in the Utopian. Koufax had, I think, 3 complete game shutouts, so that was Koufax being Koufax. But this is a team that was the top pitching team last year, and I anticipate them being very good again. Another really good bullpen as we look here, Kenley Jansen, Andy Cooper from the Negro League is going to be their 8th inning guy, Eric Gagne, Ron Perinoski, Jonathan Broxton, Brian Holton, who won a World Series for the Dodgers in '88, and new to the Dodgers this year, Clem Labine. So this is a stacked Dodgers team. There's only 3 new members from last year because I just found it hard to take anyone away. I mean, I replaced Sosha with Smith. We added Andy Cooper, and then we added Clem Labine. The rest of the team is intact. I anticipate the Dodgers to be very good again this year. And they're opening the season against a team that struggled last year. So, who knows what's in the cards? Fate will decide it, but the Dodgers have some winnable games to start the year. Rick, it looks like we've got some comments and questions for you.
Okay.
So I'm going to some of these I'll just put right on the screen so everyone can see. And not everyone gave permission to use their name. So this one comes from Facebook user. Modern analytics are incredibly useful, but it's too tempting to just become a slave to it. Sometimes trusting the numbers isn't the best idea. I fully agree with that.
Me too.
And then we have someone. So all right. So this gentleman is I guess a regular viewer. He always shows some sort of ad for baseball tryouts. I think this is Henry Waltham. So you guys can just take a look at this. He's trying to get you to play ball somewhere. Joe Mauer has a number of Hall of Fame seasons, but career-wise, he's borderline at best.
Oh, my gosh. I wish I knew who that was.
Well, we're going to find out later. Someone's going to get called out later.
It sounds like the person who's been debating me for a while. May not be there. I don't have the numbers in front of me. Otherwise I could point out to you what his career numbers are. And he played for 15 years. Now, let's face it, not everyone is going to have 15 years like Ted Williams had. But he was solid. He durable behind the plate until they moved into first base in the last couple of years. There's no question. He is a Hall of Famer. I'm sorry to disappoint whoever made that comment.
We'll find out. I mean, again, it's a fun discussion. Chuck Johnson says, Bill Madlock says hi. So, Chuck, let's get Bill Madlock in the universe. Bill Madlock is a member of the Pittsburgh Pirates in the universe. We just did our pirate show. So, Chuck, if you're with Bill Madlock, get him in the universe. Let's get him on a future show. Someone says,
Chuck's a friend of mine. Chuck,
oh, yeah?
How you doing? Good to hear from you.
Says a little early for Mookie, isn't it? So these rosters, to be very clear, when I make these rosters, it's not me saying these are the greatest Dodgers of all time. It's a mix. It's getting the obviously great ones, like in my opinion, Jackie Robinson, Sandy Koufax, Kershaw. You get those guys in. Then you get a mix of the current guys. So that's where Betts and Bellinger and Jansen come in. And then some of these are just favorites from when I was a kid. Steve Sachs was on Who's the Boss. So how are you not gonna have Steve Sachs on? No Gary Sheffield. So Gary Sheffield is a member of the team we're going to be featuring tomorrow. So watch us tomorrow at 7 o'clock to find out where Gary Sheffield is playing in 2021. Chuck also says Baines is a political choice.
Yeah. Chuck's right about that.
Facebook user says numbers say 1 out of 7, not 80%. Also, I played in that era. Not everyone even had access to them. You couldn't just order them on the internet like today, let alone deciding to take them. So I'm not sure what he's referring to. Think he's referring?
I said 80% of players back then. He's saying 1 out of 7. Well, he was there. He played there. So
okay. So again, we don't know who this is, but we'll find out shortly. Don't forget about Shoeless Joe. If Rose and Bonds go in, and they should, Jackson should too. Agreed? Joe Jackson's a Hall of Famer?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If he had not been banned from baseball in 1919 or 1920, played another 10 years, you'd be looking at massive numbers that we would still be talking about. And
again, we don't have the numbers in front of me, but in the series that he presumably threw, he hit like 380.
Yeah.
So
the only home run in that World Series.
Yeah. And then Chuck says, hey, Eric.
Hey, Chuck.
All right.
Very good to hear from you.
So that's what we got tonight. So I want to thank Rick for being on the show again. I want to have you on a ton this summer. You know, I always say to guests, if the team that you're commenting on is doing well, I might call you that morning and say, hey, something cool is happening tonight with your Dodgers. You want to talk about it for a couple minutes? Tomorrow night is going to be a different type of show. I want you guys to tune in at 7 o'clock tomorrow. We're obviously gonna have a roster reveal. We're gonna talk about the Florida Marlins, the Miami Marlins, but I want to give our guest tomorrow a platform to talk about what he's doing. I found out about this project about a week ago. It's called Eternal Baseball. It's similar to what we're doing here, but the way they're presenting it is way different. And I love the idea so much that I'm giving him the show. Like I'm not going to be doing a lot of talking tomorrow. This is going to be a gentleman's name is Mark Weber. I'm going to give him a platform to talk about what he's doing because I love the passion he's showing for it. And then at the end of the show, we'll reveal that Marlins roster for 2021. So for Eric Lenaburg, I'm Joey Buckholtz. I want to thank you guys for watching again. If you haven't noticed already, I've posted every show that we've done since February 9th onto our new YouTube page by the same name, Utopian Baseball Universe. So check those out. That was partly done as a suggestion from Richie Lunt, who is sleeping right now because he's in the UK. And he suggested
That's
just
right.
having all of the shows in one area that are easy to find. And it's a really slick, the way the shows are organized there. So check that out. They're sometimes harder to find on the Facebook page because they don't allow me to organize them the way I'd like. So thanks again, Rick. Thank you for everyone watching tonight. And tomorrow we'll see you at 7 o'clock with Mark Weber from Eternal Baseball. Have a good night, guys.